You're sitting alone in a room. Nobody else is there. And then suddenly, you feel it. Something on the back of your neck. A crawling, prickling sensation. You turn around. Someone is staring directly at you. How did you know? You couldn't see them. You couldn't hear them. But your body knew anyway. Scientists call this gaze detection, and it's one of the most studied, most debated, and most surprisingly real phenomena in all of human neuroscience. Almost everyone has experienced it. You're in a crowd, or at your desk, or walking down a street, and without any obvious signal, without seeing or hearing anything different, you just know. You know someone is looking at you. For a long time, scientists assumed this was just confirmation bias. We turn around randomly. Sometimes someone happens to be looking, and we remember the hits and forget the misses. But the research didn't agree. Controlled laboratory experiments, where participants had no way of knowing if they were being watched, showed people were detecting a gaze at rates significantly above chance. Not perfect, not magical, but consistently, measurably, above what random guessing would produce. So how does it actually work? How can your body detect something your conscious mind hasn't registered yet? The answer starts with your eyes, specifically with the whites of your eyes. Humans are the only primates with highly visible whites around the iris. Every other great ape has much darker, more camouflaged eyes. This is not an accident. Scientists believe the visible sclera evolved specifically to help us track where other people are looking. Your brain has an entire dedicated system, sometimes called the gaze detection network, that monitors the eyes of everyone around you constantly, automatically, below the level of conscious awareness. Even when you're not actively paying attention, this system is running in the background, like a background process on a computer, invisible, silent, but always running. The key region involved is the superior temporal sulcus, a fold in your brain that processes social signals, including eye contact and directed attention. Studies using brain imaging show this region fires significantly more when someone is staring directly at you compared to when they're looking just slightly to one side. Your brain can tell the difference between someone looking directly at you and someone looking just 1 degree off to the side. But why? Why did evolution bother building this system at all? Why does it matter whether someone is looking at you? To answer that, you have to go back about 2 million years. Your ancestors lived in small groups on open plains, constantly surrounded by predators and competing groups of humans. In that environment, being watched had very specific meanings. A predator locking eyes on you meant you were the target. A rival human staring at you could mean aggression, dominance, or threat. Detecting that stare even a fraction of a second earlier could mean the difference between surviving and not. So your brain built a dedicated early warning system, one that operates faster than conscious thought, faster than your visual system can even fully process what it's seeing. The feeling on the back of your neck isn't mystical. It's millions of years of survival engineering, running exactly as designed. You are, in this exact moment, carrying the same threat detection hardware your ancestors used on the African savanna. But here's where it gets genuinely strange. In some cases, people who are clinically blind with no conscious visual perception at all can still detect when someone is looking at them. This is called blind sight, and it's one of the most fascinating phenomena in all of neuroscience. People with damage to their primary visual cortex, the part of the brain that processes conscious vision, cannot see in the traditional sense. But a different visual pathway, one that bypasses the visual cortex entirely, still processes basic information about movement, contrast, and most importantly, directed gaze. The information gets in. It just never reaches conscious awareness. So the body reacts, the hairs stand up, the muscles tense, the head turns before the thinking brain knows anything happened at all. This is why the feeling seems to come from nowhere, because as far as your conscious mind is concerned, it did. Your body acted on information your mind never received. Now here's where it gets personally relevant, because being watched doesn't just alert you, it changes how you behave. There's a well-documented effect in psychology called the audience effect. The simple presence of observers, even silent ones, changes your performance and behavior. For simple, well-practiced tasks, things you can do automatically, being watched tends to improve performance. But for complex tasks, things that require real concentration and problem solving, being watched makes you worse. This is why you can walk downstairs perfectly fine while someone watches, but might stumble if you think about exactly how you're doing it. Your body is optimized for automatic execution. Conscious observation, your own or someone else's, can interrupt the automation. There's also a deeply interesting study involving a picture of eyes. In workplaces where an image of eyes, just eyes, no face, just a printed picture was placed near an honesty box, contributions went up significantly. The image of eyes alone, not a camera, not a real person, was enough to trigger the brain's being watched response. Your brain cannot fully distinguish between real surveillance and the representation of surveillance. This has enormous implications for everything from workplace productivity to social media behavior to why you behave differently when you think a camera might be present. Which brings us to the question that makes this more than just interesting neuroscience. If being watched changes your behavior even when the watcher is just a picture, then who are you when nobody is watching? Is the version of you that exists in public more upright, more careful, more composed? Is that the real you? Or is the private version the one that only exists when no one can see the authentic one? Philosophers have wrestled with this for centuries. Neuroscience has now added a layer that makes it harder to answer, not easier. Because if your brain physically changes its behavior in response to being watched automatically, without your permission, then the real you might be the version that doesn't know it's being observed. Or maybe, and this is the uncomfortable thought, there isn't a version that doesn't know. Because even in true isolation, your brain is still modeling other people, imagining how you'd appear, rehearsing social scenarios, simulating the gaze of people who aren't there. You are never truly unobserved because your brain never stops watching itself. Here's something nobody asked for, but everyone needs to know. The science of staring contests. Staring contests are uncomfortable for a very specific neurological reason. Your brain treats unbroken direct eye contact as a dominance challenge. The longer the stare continues, the more your threat detection system escalates, flooding your body with low-level stress hormones, even though you know it's just a game. This is why your eyes start watering. Your blink reflex exists partly to break social tension, and when you suppress it for too long, your nervous system starts protesting. But here's where it gets genuinely weird. If you stare into someone's eyes for long enough, we're talking 3 to 5 minutes of unbroken mutual gaze, something very strange starts to happen. Their face starts to change. Features begin to warp and shift. Faces look monstrous, or unfamiliar, or completely unrecognizable even if you've known the person for years. Scientists call this the strange face illusion, and it's completely real, completely documented, and still not entirely understood. The leading explanation: your visual system relies on constant small eye movements to refresh what it sees. When you suppress those movements during a staring contest, the brain starts filling in the gaps with its own interpretations. The same brain that reconstructs your memories from fragments? It does the same thing with vision. Stop giving it fresh data, and it starts improvising. So if you've ever been in a staring contest and thought you were going crazy, you weren't. Your brain was just running out of real information and starting to make things up, which is either deeply reassuring or makes the whole thing significantly more unsettling, depending on how you look at it. Anyway, don't stare at people for 5 minutes. Science has spoken. So next time you feel that prickling on the back of your neck, don't dismiss it. That's millions of years of survival intelligence, firing exactly as intended. Your body knew before your mind did. It always has. Let me know in the comments, has this ever happened to you? And what do you think it means? If you enjoyed this, hit like and subscribe. Bob Wonders has a lot more questions to ask. If you enjoyed this, leave a like. It takes 1 second and it means a lot. And I'd actually love to know, which memory came to mind while watching this? Drop it in the comments. Also, let me know what topics you want Bob to tackle next. The stranger the better. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching.